What's up, everybody? Welcome to the PickSix podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. It is Monday, August 16th, and we are going to recap the entire weekend of preseason action. A ton of stuff going on. Felt like a lot of action, a lot of quarterback battles. That'll probably be the focus in this episode, by the way. Sponsored by, that's right, Bud Light. Oh, look at that. Joining us, Jordan Dajani, who's got his own Bud Light in his house. Nice work, pal. I've got a Bud Light hat and a Bud Light light, but no, I actually have, this is kind of counterintuitive, but my Bud Light is in my Bud Light cooler, which just doesn't have any ice in it. Otherwise, I would drink a Bud Light with you. So instead, I'll enjoy a nice glass of ice water. If you want to join us, if you're listening, whether it's Monday morning or Monday afternoon, and you want to enjoy a Bud Light with us, go to budlight.com/delivery now to order. Budlight.com/delivery. You go there. There's a plethora of options to get Bud Light delivered to your house, whether it's from a grocery store, Walmart, I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff. Amazon. Go to budlight.com/delivery and enjoy a brew with us. All right, Jordan, what's up? How you doing?
What's going on, Brinson, man? Just wrapped up a nice week one of the 2021 NFL preseason. So now it's time to recklessly overreact to the quarterback battles and all the rookies we saw in action. So very excited for that.
Do you feel like football is here now as a result
of
the preseason action beginning? Because I sort of do.
Yeah, I definitely do, especially seeing the new faces and new places, the rookies out there on the field in their uniforms, actually taking somewhat legitimate snaps against players that are not their teammates. Yeah, I definitely feel like football is back.
Yeah, let's talk about those rookie quarterbacks, and we'll start with Trevor Lawrence. Look, there are these battles. We've heard Urban Meyer say there's a battle between Trevor Lawrence and Gardner Minshew. I'm not buying into that. I do believe that Cam Newton and Mack Jones, Zach Wilson don't have a battle, but Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Justin Fields, Andy Dalton are all legitimate battles that can turn over the course of these next few weeks in the preseason, potentially. Lawrence, though, is going to win the job. He only played two series, which was kind of surprising that Urban Meyer wanted to get that much of a look at Gardner Minshew instead of getting Trevor Lawrence reps. I understand you don't want to get him hurt, but that also indicates that Trevor Lawrence is winning the job. He went 6 of 9 for 71 yards. A fumble actually came on the first snap and ended up with being sacked twice. But I thought, and CJ Beathard got the majority of the action there in Jacksonville. You see the box score. If you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/PickSix, you can see Debo's posting our fantastic CBS Sports game tracker there. And when you got Kyle Lauletta, CJ Beathard getting most of the snaps, you know that you're probably dealing with a preseason game or a late season game. Lawrence, though, I got to tell you, Jordan, I thought he looked really sharp, and he made some big boy throws. I don't think that anything he could have done would have surprised me. That's just how high I have the bar for Trevor Lawrence. So it was possible for him to disappoint me in this game and not live up to expectations, but I thought he did live up to expectations. And certainly you saw the talent early on inherent in Trevor Lawrence. I mean, this is not a competition, right?
Right, and what you said kind of hit the nail on the head. Since he only played for 2 series and started the game, I think we can put away all that crazy talk about if there's a legitimate quarterback competition in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is going to be the guy. We all know that. So, I thought since he only played 2 series, we don't have too much to really go off of and overreact to compared to some of the other rookie quarterbacks. That's just what happens when you're the number 1 overall pick. I saw he had a really nice 10-yard first down strike on like 3rd and long. The other thing that I really took away was he had a nice 35-yard completion to Marvin Jones Jr., who looks like his most trusted target, by the way, hint, if you like fantasy football. If there is one thing that I could criticize Trevor Lawrence for, it's that I thought he held the ball too long. And we even saw that on some of his good plays where he held the ball too long, just in my opinion. But I do think that's something that is fixable. I think that's something that's going to come naturally as you figure out how to go through your progression at the next level with your receivers that you've been working with for a few months. But again, there just really wasn't too much for us to really go off of, to overreact to. He got sacked like twice, I think. But you said it. He looked sharp on certain plays. He did what he was supposed to do out there in his first NFL action.
Yeah, and the other takeaway I had from this, just watching it, and I know the Jaguars they didn't score early. In fact, they didn't score until the fourth quarter when the game was 16-0 Cleveland. And so it was CJ Beathard that did all that had CJ Beathard had one touchdown pass to Tavon Austin, which again tells you all about, about the preseason. And Jake Luton had a touchdown pass as well in that fourth quarter. So Lawrence didn't actually score any points, but I could sort of see the semblance of a pretty, maybe surprisingly impressive Jaguars offense if Lawrence lives up to the billing. And I'm for fantasy purposes, I think I'm kind of bumping the Jaguars up a little bit. Like I have more interest in Travis Etienne, who's going to see a ton of catches. I thought you saw the flashes. He only had three targets, 2 catches, 14 yards for Laviska Shenault, though, but they used him on a bubble screen. James Robinson got some carries, so that's certainly good. Because there's some certainly concern that he might be a little bit lost in the shuffle with Etienne coming in. And as you point out, Marvin Jones, man, he could be like you could get a Marvin Jones, Trevor Lawrence stack in if you're doing best ball, like on Underdog, or if you're just doing regular fantasy for nothing. I mean, it costs nothing to get a Marvin Jones, Trevor Lawrence, even Laviska's stack there with DJ Chark all banged up. I think Marvin Jones is the sort of dude you can get as a wide receiver 3 type that could pay off big time dividends as a deep threat for that team. So I'm sort of coming back. I'm sort of getting in on the Jaguars, and maybe I'm late to that fantasy bandwagon, but it doesn't feel like there's a lot of hype surrounding them. Just that they're kind of an enigma, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think you're late to it at all. And, just looking and surveying the roster just on paper, you can see that talent is there on both sides of the ball, really. I mean, you name the receivers. DJ Chark has legitimate wide receiver 1 potential. I thought Marvin Jones Jr., who we've been talking about, was one of the more underrated signings of the offseason. Like, I hypothesized he would be a true and trusted target for Trevor Lawrence, and I thought we saw that just from the jump. So that was good to see. Laviska Shenault, as you mentioned. Then we got James Robinson, Travis Etienne. Those are guys who all can make impacts on any given Sunday in my mind. And if Trevor Lawrence coming in can provide some level of consistency in either playmaking ability in year 1, then that Jaguars offense is something that, could have some high-scoring games. The talent is there. Yeah,
and the other thing, too, is the defense, while maybe it takes a small step forward, I don't think will be particularly good, which means that Trevor Lawrence will probably be throwing the ball a ton and we could see them put up a bunch of points. Jaguars overs could be a good look early in the season if you're betting them. And I think there'll be a little – I could see Jacksonville being a little similar to the Bengals early on before Joe Burrow got hurt last year, where they were putting up a bunch of points. They stayed in games and they were better than you think, but they were still bad but kind of fun to watch. So I'm coming back around to the Jaguars. My irrational distaste for Urban Meyer has probably left me on the outside looking in for the Jaguars until now, as I've swerved back onto this. I don't know why I'm calling it a bandwagon. They're going to stand. I mean, they're not going to be good. I don't actually, you know what? I don't mind a little 8-1 Jacksonville to win the AFC South. Honestly, I don't think it's going to happen, but the Texans are trash. The Colts are certainly a concern with the injuries to Wentz and Quentin Nelson. And I don't know, maybe the Titans aren't that great. So I don't hate that. Trey Lance, interesting stat line for the 49ers, 5 of 14, 128 yards, 5 of 14, not good in terms of accuracy and passing numbers, but did have an 80-yard bomb of a touchdown that was a laser on it, just a laser rope, sacked 4 times, and had 3 wide receiver drops. I thought Trey Lance acquitted himself pretty well, and probably is pressing Jimmy Garoppolo. I'll still hold firm on the idea that Kyle Shanahan is going to start Jimmy G in week 1 and let him play until it looks like either Trevor Lawrence just takes over the job, or injury or poor performance by Jimmy G. What say you on the Jimmy G Trey Lance front?
No, I agree with you. I think that Trey Lance is definitely pushing Jimmy Garoppolo, but I'll go ahead and pencil in Jimmy Garoppolo starting week 1. I think that's just their philosophy. I think that's the direction that they're going to go. But man, Trey Lance. So you mentioned the stat line, 5 of 14. He did suffer through a couple of drops. Not that impressive, but 128 yards, including that 80-yard bomb to Trent Sherfield. I got to talk about Trent Sherfield for a second, because that appears to be Trey Lance's go-to guy when he's pushing down the field. We saw that in training camp when Trey Lance lit up social media a couple weeks ago. It was this across his body throw like 50 yards down the field in the air. That went to Trent Sherfield as well. So that could be an interesting flyer late in your fantasy draft, depending on number of people in your league. But man, Trey Lance is a guy who wants to take the top off of defenses. That has been established now. In fact, in his press conference after the game, he mentioned that Kyle Shanahan dialed up some explosive plays that he was unable to take advantage of. So when those two guys get on the same page, this 49ers offense could really take the top off of defenses. We talked about this the other podcast. I mean, they got a dynamic duo, a budding duo at wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. We know what George Kittle's capable of. This offense has some serious potential to be explosive, but I do think Jimmy Garoppolo starts in week 1, but Trey Lance is going to replace him at some point in the 2021 season.
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't replace Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think there's a pathway where he doesn't. Look at Alex Smith in 2017. It means that the 49ers are 13-4 worst case, or 12, even 12-5 might not get it done depending on when the losses happen. I agree with you on Lance. I think more than likely he takes over the job. I think Kyle Shanahan has always had this particular plan in mind that he wanted to operate with, and Trey Lance is giving him some fits because he didn't expect this rookie who's coming from an FCS school and hasn't really just played like 2 football games in 2 years to be as sharp as he has early on. I think what we will see from the 49ers, and Kyle Shanahan has openly said this, and I know that people are big on the Kyle Shanahan as a lying SOB right now thing because of the whole Mack Jones smokescreen, but Kyle Shanahan has said, we are going to build packages for Trey Lance. So, however that can impact fantasy betting, whatever it is, I think you can expect to see 80-20 right now. I think that's the min for Trey Lance, just in terms of the snaps that he'll see on the field. And Kyle, I don't know how much I believe this. Kyle Shanahan said, I can't remember, I think I was reading in The Athletic maybe, but Shanahan said this stuff. And then Jimmy G and Trey Lance were both like, that's cool with us. If he wants to do 2 quarterbacks, it's unusual. We've never done it, but we'll play along. I don't know how the team will buy in. I think it worked once for Urban Meyer with Chris Leak and Tim Tebow. Do you buy or sell the idea that the 49ers can use 2 quarterbacks, or I guess Taysom Hill style maybe?
No, I'm selling that. 80-20 sounds really ambitious, but what we do know is that Trey Lance is going to be getting some reps. Like I remember people were blowing up Twitter because he actually took a snap.
Right?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I still think that could be a little much. Like, he's going to see the field as like a decoy wide receiver like Lamar Jackson when he was a rookie. He's going to run with the ball. That was something they were implementing with the first team offense, the 49ers, like a week or 2 ago. So we're going to see him see the field. But, I mean, 90-10 sounds way more realistic than 80-20. But he's going to be worked in at least somewhat.
Now I'm like sort of just ripping off numbers. Like 80-20. I should look. I mean, all right, so – let's see if Jimmy G had in 2019 when the 49ers were good. He had, and again, we're predicating all this on the 49ers being good. He had 1,056 snaps that he took. That is 99% of the offensive snaps. We divide that by 16. So 66 snaps per game. So if you do, so that'd be, maybe 80 is too much. 80-20 is too much. That'd be 13 snaps per game for Trey Lance. I was thinking more like, I think 90-10, maybe 93-7, maybe. I think that Kyle Shanahan, here's how I think he'll build it out. I think Jimmy G will be the starter. Trey Lance will have a set of plays that he is going to be used on. If Trey Lance comes out on the field for a drive, and man, this would be crazy to do this at the NFL level, out because really Taysom Hill doesn't do drives, he just comes running on for one play. If they bring Trey Lance out there for, let's say, a first down when they get the ball, I sort of wonder if Kyle Shanahan will script out a drive and have Trey Lance finish. In other words, you would essentially be pressing a defense in a way that they aren't usually pressed by having Trey Lance on the field for one series and then Jimmy G on the field for one series and leaning into their strengths. It sounds kind of insane, but here's my ice cold take presented by Bud Light. It's so insane. It just might work. The only reason I'm buying into this, again, ice cold take presented by Bud Light, is that this Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo dual quarterback idea can work. It can live. They can coexist on the field together on varying snaps, a la Tebow and Leak, in a way that will force defenses to prepare series to series, drive to drive, to adjust to what Jimmy G does, to adjust to what Trey Lance does. And I don't know that Jimmy G is necessarily more dynamic in any kind of fashion, but I think he's probably more accurate. Trey Lance is so dangerous with his legs that if you have a defensive game plan and all of a sudden they change the quarterback up and they change it back and forth, you're kind of reeling as a defensive coordinator. So because it's Kyle Shanahan, because they have the weapons around him, that's it. I'm buying in. I'm buying into the 2-quarterback system in the NFL working in San Francisco. That's my ice cold take presented by Bud Light. I can't wait to be wrong in week 1.
I weirdly like this take. I think it could work as well. Now, if they do it, it's kind of another story. But what you said about having Jimmy Garoppolo kind of start the drive and then Trey Lance in some ways finish it, for lack of a better word, that's interesting, especially when you get down to the red zone, if you can do different things with your quarterback as Trey Lance. But I want to put this on record too, because I think I know how this quarterback situation is gonna end out. Okay, I think that we both agree that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start in week 1 against the Lions. I think he is on a very short leash. So in week 3, when they play the Packers, week 4 Seahawks, week 5 Cardinals. If he struggles during those games or whenever he's taken out, whenever he's benched, if he's struggling and Trey Lance comes in, that's when Trey Lance wins the job. And that's when he's named the starter for the very next week. So where's the over-under of games Jimmy Garoppolo starts? Because I think it could happen in week 4, week 5, or week 6 or so. As soon as Jimmy Garoppolo struggles and the offense is coming to a halt, they're going to insert Trey Lance, and that's when they don't look back.
The other thing about that take too, and I kind of like the idea, and I do agree. If they go to Trey Lance as the starter, you're not gonna
go back.
You're not going to alternate quarterbacking with Jimmy G unless you're just losing games. That's the one thing I think that Kyle Shanahan will be cognizant of and careful with, is that if he goes to Trey Lance in week 5 and the team is 3-1 or 4-0, if it's 2-2, no one will care. But if it's 3-1 or 4-0 and you go to him in week 5 against the Cardinals and then you lose 3 or 4 games, you have a problem on your hands. So you have to be a little cautious with that. Their bye is week 6. I do like the idea that Kyle Shanahan would wait until the last possible second in weeks 3, 4, or 5 and drop the news that Trey Lance is starting over Jimmy Garoppolo on either the Packers or one of the division rivals, the Seahawks or the Cardinals. I think that makes a lot of sense because you would get a leg up because you would be forcing a defense to prepare for something they didn't think they were going to get in short time. So all of that's going to be interesting. And by the way, look, if this is, the 2019 Browns doing this, we're ridiculing them. Freddie Kitchens is trying to pull this off. We're like, this idiot thinks you can run 2 quarterbacks in the NFL. Who does he think he is? But because it's Kyle Shanahan, we're like, yeah, it just might be crazy enough to work. All right, to the next rookie, Justin Fields. And I should point out, too, if it feels like we're only talking about rookie quarterbacks and quarterback competitions, that's kind of just what happened this weekend. Like that was the overarching storylines from the weekend. Justin Fields has Bears fans in a tizzy. They have bronze. He is actually, there's a petition out there to dip him in bronze and send him straight to Canton. Send his bus to Canton. It's over. 14 of 20 for 142 yards, 1 TD, 5 rushes for 33 yards, and a rushing touchdown. He also had a fumble. I thought about making my ice cold take presented by Bud Light that Bears fans are overrating Justin Fields' performance, but I didn't feel like I needed to have Bears fans attack me this early in the proceedings of the full season. Your thoughts?
So, I mean, yeah, that take could work.
About the overrated part, not about
Right. I mean, yeah, we could overrate this, but at the same time, I did think that his first NFL action was impressive. The stat line looks impressive.
He played really well. It was
yes. And here's my takeaway is that he adds something to this offense. He's more dynamic. He used his feet. He's somebody who wants to push the ball down the field. He's exciting is the bottom line. I think that's what we saw in that week 1 of the preseason. He wants to make the big play. And on the other hand, you have Andy Dalton, who went 2 of 4 for 18 yards. I get it's the preseason. I get he's the starter. You're not going to see a lot out of him. But Justin Fields went out there and, yeah, he turned the ball over once with a bad fumble, but I thought he did exactly what he wanted to in terms of scoring multiple touchdowns, getting the fans excited, making plays, pushing the ball down the field. That's who Justin Fields is. And I know that they think they're married to Andy Dalton week 1, but I wonder if Justin Fields, if he has another good preseason game over the next 2 weeks, could the Bears potentially reconsider their game plan?
Yeah, I mean, the other obvious hot take or ice cold take, excuse me, presented by Bud Light, would have been to say the Bears need to start Justin Fields. That feels pretty obvious. The one reason I would, I'm concerned about this Fields Dalton situation primarily because when you look at what the Bears have on their schedule, week 1 in Los Angeles at the Rams. That's a tough matchup. The Rams are going to be a good defense. You have do you really want a rookie's first start to be, hello, welcome to Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey? I mean, that's tough. But after that, in week 2, they had the Bengals at home. They're at the Browns, improved defense, but I don't think necessarily, a top 5 unit or anything. And they have the Lions at home and they're at the Raiders. Those are very winnable games for the Bears. Now, if you struggle out of the gate and in the week 6, you decide we have to go to Fields because we're not winning games, you have the Packers at home, not good. At the Buccaneers, very bad. The 49ers at home, also not good. And at the Steelers. I don't think the Steelers are going to be great, but those are 4 really tough games against experienced veteran defensive teams. Whereas in the first 5 weeks, you get the Bengals, Lions, and Raiders. If I'm picking who Justin Fields is going against, I want him to go against I want him to wet his, cut his teeth on the Raiders and the Lions and the Bengals. So I think it's a mistake not to play him out of the gate. And I also think it's probably a mistake that the Bears are going to make regardless of how he looks in the preseason.
Yep, I agree with that. And, while you mentioned a week 1 opponent is going to be really tough against the number 1 defense in the league last year, at the same time, a rookie has to get his feet wet. I don't care if you're playing any NFL defense week 1. I mean, that's going to be somewhat of a challenge that you haven't faced before in the regular season. So you can try to pick and choose where you want to insert your rookie. But at the same time, I think Fields has that potential to actually be the quarterback who pushes the ball down the field, scores points for your offense, and puts your team in a position to win. That's kind of the big mindset you're supposed to have as a head coach or GM. And that's why I would be reconsidering my game plan if I'm the Bears.
Any thoughts on Tua and the Dolphins? It was notable to me that Myles Gaskin, from a fantasy perspective, that the Dolphins they used Malcolm Brown as their number 1 running back. That's something to keep an eye on over the course of the preseason. I think maybe am I somehow forgetting the coach of the Miami Dolphins name? Brian Flores. Spaced on us. My brain went blank there. He sort of said the way he described it was I was sort of tossed him out there and see what happens. That's something to watch for because Gaskin is going in the running back 2 range and people are treating him as a viable candidate. And he got 4 catches. He had 4 catches for 4 rushes for 19 yards and then was targeted, I believe, twice in the passing game. So he'll have that factor. But if Ahmed and Malcolm Brown are getting more carries, that's something to watch for from a fantasy perspective.
No, yeah, I agree. And I'm glad you brought that up. And I think that a lot of people were anticipating Gaskin's fantasy stock was going to drop just because of the additions they made. And he can't really, live up to what he did last year. But even though it's week 1 of the preseason and I don't want to overreact, I thought that kind of confirmed it for me. If they're not running a 2-back system, maybe Gaskin could be more the guy who catches the ball. That's good for PPR. But at the same time, I thought his stock was much higher last year. So I agree. That's something to keep an eye on. But when it comes to Tua, he had ups and downs. I don't think that I can come to a reasonable conclusion, good or bad. He had ups and downs. He made a really bad interception in the end zone, but at the same time, he had some good passes towards the outside, and that's going to be interesting to watch when we get Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle back in the mix. That's where we want to see improvement for Tua, is taking shots downfield in an accurate way, putting those speedsters in positions to score. I thought that Mike Gesicki, he had a huge play, I think 50-yard catch. I call him a security blanket, but he's not really a security blanket because he's a dynamic one. He's somebody who can go down the field. So he's obviously comfortable with Mike Gesicki. That's something that's at least going to help Tua. Hopefully he gets more familiar with throwing the ball to the outside. So there were ups and downs, but I think we were kind of expecting to see that out of Tua in week 1 of the preseason.
Yeah, it would have been surprising if Tua just came out and lit things up. But there's been a drumbeat though, where people are sort of getting on this Tua bandwagon that he could have a really good season. We'll see how that plays out. Lynn Bowden, by the way, 5 targets, 4 catches, 47 yards. I don't know if you know this. He's a combination.
I
of
love Lynn.
Randy. Well, we talked about this. Yeah, who had the Raiders guy or no? When it. Oh no, Lynn Bowden was drafted by the Raiders. That's what we were talking about before.
We're talking about Brian Edwards.
Brian Edwards is the combination of Terrell Owens and Randy Moss. That's right. Lynn Bowden is the guy who was dumped off by the Raiders after they spent a high pick on him before he even played it down.
I was going to say, wasn't he in that Charlotte Bowl game where he was playing quarterback for Kentucky? He played quarterback, wide receiver, running back, dynamic offensive weapon. I loved when he went to the NFL.
For a second, I thought you were referring to the NC State Bowl game, and I was about to kick you off the podcast.
No, I wouldn't do
that.
Wait,
look how this is proof. Russell Wilson actually played at NC State. You see that? This is a Stadium Cup from Russell Wilson's days in Raleigh. Just another.
So yeah, should he claim NC State or claim Wisconsin? That's a big debate.
That's why he does. Well, it depends if he's playing well if he's playing well and not being weird. NC State. If he's playing like crap and being a weirdo off the field, he can have Wisconsin. But that's why he says whole pack of Badgers, because he didn't want to offend anyone. Zach Wilson, 6 of 9 for 63 yards for the New York Jets, and their rousing 12-7 victory over the New York Football Giants. He actually didn't. He only played 1 or 2 series, I believe, which is kind of strange because I don't understand why these teams aren't given, even if they're the presumptive starters, why you're not giving rookie quarterbacks more reps. I get it. I mean, I understand you. Would like to, make sure they don't get hurt, but these are the only reps that they can get right now. It's very bizarre to me.
No, I agree with you. I would have played him for at least a couple more series, no doubt about that, just to get their feet wet against, the first legitimate NFL action that they're having. But at the same time, they are getting the starters treatment, and I think that, they're going to get more run over the next 2 preseason games. So I guess it's not that big of a deal. But when it comes to Wilson's performance, it reminded me what we were just talking about with Trevor Lawrence. There's not a lot to go off of because he didn't play as much. But at the same time, I thought this was a very important showing because we all know that huge national story that he struggled in that first outing in the green and white scrimmage. He went like 11 of 24, threw 2 picks, scored 3 points on 7 possessions against the first team defense. So a lot of people, while they're getting excited watching Mack Jones, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, how is Zach Wilson going to fare? So I thought it was important that he came out there. He looked calm. He had 6 completions to 5 different receivers. That's important. He did have 1 or 2 bad throws, but at the same time, he spread it out. I thought he made some good tosses. He proved that he was bigger than the narrative or the potential narrative that he could come in and maybe struggle.
Yeah, and he just is going to be the starter. They just don't have anyone else. Like they have made it abundantly clear that they are going with Zach Wilson, and he is going to play 16 games. And if he gets hurt, if he stinks, and they just work through it. And I understand why. You play 16 games with Zach Wilson, and if it's sort of a win-win, as I do air quotes there. Breed sex to say bunny ear quotes. It's a win if Zach Wilson's good, obviously, and it's a little bit of a win if Zach Wilson doesn't play well enough for you to succeed in football games and to come away with victories, and therefore you get a high draft pick and you can give him some more talent to work with. One I thought very notable, because the reports from beat writers thus far in camp had been that Denzel Mims was the, I believe, 6th or 7th wide receiver on the depth chart, which is insane for a 2nd-round pick from the current GM, who only got to play with Adam Gase and Sam Darnold last year. And Mims had 4 targets, 3 catches, 51 yards. I would posit, Jordan, that any talk about Mims as being buried on the depth chart is actually more motivational than anything, and perhaps it succeeded early on.
No, I think you're probably right about that. I mean, Mims is a kid that they are trying to motivate because they have a lot of stock in him. They think he has that potential to be a number 1 wideout. So they want to bring him along as they bring in their new quarterback as well, try to establish that chemistry. But at the same time, there are some good names on that, in that wide receiving core that the Jets have to work with, which is something that we couldn't say last year. So he's a player to watch moving forward, especially in the preseason.
Agreed. And if I don't buy the possibility of him being cut. I don't.
No, I don't either.
There's too much invested in him. You give him another year with a new coaching staff. That doesn't make any sense to me. Mack Jones, finally, 13 of 19, 80 7 passing yards for McCorkle. Is it McCorkle Jones the fourth? Something. He's McCorkle, and he's got a number, a Roman numeral after his name. I know that much. He actually finished with no touchdown or no interception, but I believe did lead a scoring drive. This game was notable because friggin' Ron Rivera screwed me by calling timeouts as Bill Belichick was kneeling the ball in a meaningless situation. Belichick was on the sideline MFing him like crazy, trying not to let the cameras catch him. He was mumbling it, and immediately after Rivera calls the timeouts, Belichick runs power right to Ramondre Stevenson. He rips off a 91-yard touchdown run, and my under is busted. So thanks for nothing, Riverboat.
No, he ruined my under. I was on the same thing you were too, so I was upset to see that. But that was an incredible night by that Ramondre Stevenson guy. I mean, 127 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. The Patriots love their running backs, and they love to have many on their active roster. So that's another guy I think everyone's excited to watch. He lit up Twitter after he did that 91-yard touchdown run. But in terms of Mack Jones, I was actually very impressed by him. This was a game I obviously was watching because I got ties to Washington, and he went 13 and 19, 87 yards. The biggest thing is I didn't know what to expect out of this kid, right? I don't know how to break down Alabama quarterbacks because they're working with NFL talent out wide, in front, and behind them. So I just don't believe you can even break down and try to see which of these Alabama quarterbacks is going to be good at the next level or bad at the next level. So when Mack Jones came in, his first throw was way underthrown. The receiver was able to save it, but they still ruled it incomplete. But from there on, he looked very comfortable. I thought he looked legitimately poised. He had a really good deep ball as well. I don't know if you saw this. Down the left sideline, like 50 yards in the air. It couldn't have been placed any better, but the coverage was A+. The receiver dropped it. But I thought that, he at least tried to push the ball down the field. There was another throw that really stuck out to me. Washington was playing in like a cover 2 zone, and he split the second and third levels, the linebackers and safeties that were coming down to hit Kendrick Bourne, I believe. It was a really good throw that I didn't expect to see a rookie quarterback making, taking chances against that defense with a slant. So I was really impressed with Mack Jones. The other thing that everyone kept talking about, because, Cam Newton obviously is competing against him, that stat you saw, the average depth of target, 7.6 yards against 0.7 yard for Cam Newton. So we saw Mack Jones come in and push the ball down the field, make things happen on offense. And we weren't able to see that last year with Cam Newton. So a lot of people, including myself, are kind of on the train saying that Cam Newton's kind of shot. Mack Jones should be in a legitimate quarterback battle here, maybe start week 1. I was impressed with what I saw in his first NFL showing.
Yeah, McCorkle is definitely putting a little pressure on Bill Belichick to make a decision. I still think similar to Kyle Shanahan and maybe similar to the Bears too, and I've been saying this a bunch, and I'll keep saying it until they prove me differently, that it's more likely for Bill Belichick and Kyle Shanahan and Matt Nagy to go with the veteran starter. Because if you put the veteran in there and he wins games, it's great. You've got a rookie who can sit and learn and sort of, catch up mentally and get more practice reps as you prepare for eventually starting. And if you start the rookie, and then look, if you're losing games, you're like, all right, let's go to the rookie and see what he's got. If you start the rookie out of the gates in week 1 and he loses games, do you then have to bench a rookie quarterback, a first-round rookie quarterback, for Cam Newton or Jimmy G because you're trying to win games? So because of their – like for the Jets, it's easy. You're just playing Zach Wilson, and it doesn't matter if you win games or lose games. You were trying to see what Zach Wilson has. The Patriots and the 49ers and the Bears the Bears for sure actually are walking more of a tightrope where they have to try to win games, but also see what the rookies got. So I just don't think those coaches will aggressively push to play that rookie out of the gate. But maybe, Mack Jones could certainly prove me wrong, and so could Justin Fields and Trey Lance for sure. But I think that's what we'll get. Summer is here. That means only one thing. It's time to stock the coolers and start counting down the days until we can enjoy an ice cold Bud Light in an NFL stadium. By our count, only 24 days are remaining until we can hear a beer vendor yelling about ice cold Bud Light. And to help you take summer by the coolers and get ready to tailgate, Bud Light is giving away coolers all summer long. Every single day, you can have a chance to win a cooler. That's right, free coolers all summer long. Throw away that dusty old icebox you have in the back of your garage and tailgate in style this fall. And all you have to do for a chance to win the cooler, which, by the way, holds a ton of ice. It's gigantic. It holds a ton of Bud Light that you can share with your friends responsibly. It's bear proof. The ice will last for 9 days. To get that, to have a chance to win a cooler, go to budlightlegends.com, sign up and enter there. That's at budlightlegends.com. All right, Jordan, let's dive into some other notable action from the weekend. The Ravens, Johnny Harbs, the cover galled. He just can't stop covering in the preseason. I bet him, as I told people, bet the Ravens. I got to see what I write down the picks that Wilson and I made. Oh, here we go. All right, let's see how I did. So, Ravens -3.5 winner. Clip Chargers under 33.5 winner. Lions -1. That is a tough loser. I'm buying Wilson's theory about Dan Campbell being a preseason monster. That they should have covered that. Ravens 2.5. Sorry.
Okay, I was about to say. Okay,
they won by 3. They covered it the last second. It was a BS cover. Sorry. My handwriting is crap. That's why.
Well, I was going to say this.
I betted at 2.5 like 2 weeks ago. For the second the lines got up, I'm just blindly betting John Harbaugh because he's the preseason cover machine. The Lions should have covered and should have won. The Bills had a field goal that probably shouldn't happen. The Jaguars did not cover and were never really in that game. Oh, ouch. Panthers +1.5. I mean,
ooh,
that should have covered.
Ooh.
The Colts were being tryhards at the end of that game. That's annoying that didn't hit. And Green Bay -3.5 did not hit. I
lost money. I lost money last night for sure. And I was going to say this. I
won money last night because the Lions was on. I also should be in full disclosure. And I posted this on like the Action app or whatever. But when the Packers sent out their depth chart for who was playing and not playing, it was very clear the Texans were going to win that game.
Yeah, I lost money on that one. The other thing I was going to say is I don't even know if you're aware of this, but I wrote 900 words for CBSSports.com on why the Saints would beat the Ravens. And I even called you out by name in the conclusion of that article, saying that I was going to be a contrarian, like Will Brinson and everybody's blind betting the Ravens. And I laid out my entire argument, and I was wrong. And I caught flack for it, and I was so disappointed. I went straight to bed like 10 o'clock last night.
You weren't wrong. I mean, you were wrong. You were technically like very much wrong. But I think Baltimore scored with what they have 6 minutes left in the game. Huntley runs up the middle for a touchdown, and they get a 2-point conversion to cover by 3. I mean, like the Saints should have won the game. Saints should have covered the game. Baltimore looked dead in the water the whole time, and they magically pulled it off. And obviously, I think anyone who listens to this podcast would know that I'm certainly narcissistic enough to have a Google alert for my name. Therefore, I would know that you wrote it. But the problem is when they do the embeds of the podcast and articles, it always says Will Brinson and da-da-da. So I just don't check anymore. So for all I know, I'm being viciously obliterated by people in various news things. But I had not seen it, but I would say you were on the right side of that bet and I was on the wrong side of the bet. And just Johnny Harbs' magic just happens to come through in that spot. We talked about Tua. Jordan Love, 12 of 17, 122 yards and a touchdown for the Packers. As we mentioned, the Texans rolled Green Bay. Love also had an MRI on his shoulder, I believe, but it came back clean. So I think he's fine. Man, I mean, he was fine, but it was a stark reminder that this Packers team, the Packers would have been idiots to trade Aaron Rodgers or let Aaron Rodgers walk away from football.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, when it came to Love's performance, I actually thought it was good. He had one touchdown throw. He looked raw. He definitely looked raw, but his athleticism was on full display, in my opinion. And he uses that in his vision. He was really good at stepping up into the pocket, looking to his left for dump offs. He had a couple of good plays that definitely turned my head. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. There's a reason that the Packers, it's so good they got Aaron Rodgers back, because it wouldn't have probably fared well if Jordan Love was out there starting. But I think that there's some potential there. So I'm excited to see what he does in the future moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, look, I agree with you. He wasn't like horrible. It's just, if you go into, and Aaron Rodgers wasn't good in his first preseason action ever when he replaced Brett Favre. So you can't read that much into it, even against suspect Texans defense. As we point out, Green Bay didn't play anybody. So Love is working with, starting behind the 8 ball because of who he's playing with. I just think that this team is ready to win now. And if they were trying to win with Jordan Love in 2021, it would be problematic from a standpoint that, you just don't know what you're going to get week to week. And they're in a much better spot. That was his first time taking an NFL snap in any type of game. There's no preseason last year. The Saints trotted out Taysom Hill, 8 of 12 for 81 yards and interception. He got sacked once. And Jameis Winston, 9 of 12 for 96 yards, a TD and a pick. You told people to bet on the Saints. I think that, but no, I mean, I think the Saints are a good bet moving forward in the preseason because Sean Payton needs to know what he's going to do with these quarterbacks. And so these guys are going to get pretty reasonable run. Maybe Saints first half bets are the way to go because, two very motivated quarterbacks who are in a familiar system with good talent around them. Ian Book, you saw 9 of 16 for 126 and a pick in the second half. I don't know that I want to bet on the Saints if Ian Book is going to be getting, 20 pass attempts a game. But if it's going to be, if Jameis gets a half and Taysom gets a half, I'll take the Saints a good spread. I think they're going to be motivated out there.
I was confused because a big part of my argument I wrote was that their quarterback room was going to be good because I thought they had Trevor Siemian there, and I was expecting him to come in and lead the potential game-winning drive, but instead it was Ian Book again, and he threw a pick on the prospective or potential game-winning drive. So that stunk for me. Yeah. But it's interesting. Like Taysom Hill looked bad to me. Taysom Hill did not have a good outing.
I think Jameis is the guy.
We both agree with that. I was surprised, though, that Taysom Hill looked that bad. 2 turnovers on the first 2 drives of the game. One was a fumble, not his fault. Then he threw a pick on another. Could have been picked off 1 or even 2 more times. Jameis Winston's interception wasn't even necessarily his fault. It bounced off a shoulder pad. So, yeah, I thought Jameis Winston is up on the quarterback battle there for sure. The other thing, man, this hurts me even more. 6 turnovers by the Saints, and they lost by 3 points.
That's rough. One thing that's worth noting too here, I was listening to Establish the Runs podcast with Evan Silva and Adam Levitan, and Silva had spoken with Nick Underhill, who does a great job. I think it's NOLA-football.com is his site, independent. You should definitely check it out. He's very plugged into the Saints and does a great job covering them. Underhill had sort of, in Evan's conversation with Nick, basically it sounds like this Saints Michael Thomas thing might be legitimate. Like it might be a legitimate beef with the team. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe he comes back from injury. I am probably going to avoid picking him up in fantasy. And I think too, if you're looking at futures and there's this, this confusion over Jameis versus Taysom, and they're not going to have, who knows how much time, how many games Michael Thomas is actually going to play in. I'm worried about, I don't want to be high on the Saints coming into the season. Even Alvin Kamara, I think it'll be fine if Jameis is the quarterback, but man, the Saints are perplexing. If they were coached by somebody, if they were coached by Mike McCarthy instead of Sean Payton, I would be fully out on the Saints. The Broncos have a quarterback battle as well. Teddy Bridgewater, 7 of 8 for 74 yards and a TD, but it was Drew Lock, I thought, who got most of the buzz going out there, and he looks sharp. I mean, everyone knows he's got a live arm, and it was live. He had a KJ Hamler on a bomb down the field that was a really, really nice throw. 5 of 7, 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. Could have been 3. They went for it on 4th and 2, I think, and they ran a slant to Jerry Jeudy, and Locke kind of hit him a little on the inside and just didn't get it far enough out where Jeudy could beat his man, and ended up being a turnover on downs. But generally speaking, I was impressed with Drew Lock and would expect that he is probably, as I anticipated, going to be the guy in week 1 because he gives him a higher ceiling. And if he struggles, they go to Teddy.
No, I think so too. And yeah, that touchdown pass to KJ Hamler, I swore the ball was in the air for like 100 yards. That was a huge pass. And KJ Hamler, by the way, that's not a preseason name. That's a kid who's going to play a role on this offense. Penn State slot receiver, 2 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown.
Really good best ball target, good fantasy target. I don't know why I'm like sprinkling these. I mean, I guess I do. It's fantasy, but like if you're doing underdog fantasy best ball, which is my new obsession, Hamler's a great target. Because he's going to have spike weeks. I don't think he's going to be consistent week to week in terms of his production, but he's going to catch these deep bombs. And as much as we don't like Penn State on this podcast, we do like KJ Hamler.
No doubt about that. Another guy, Trinity Benson, caught 2 touchdowns. Apparently some beat writers are high on him. The real story, though, and yes, I agree with you, Drew Lock, I think he's going to be the winner. Both quarterbacks look sharp. That was good to see. It was an entertaining game. But the real story, how about Patrick Surtain? The second, his first NFL game, 2 passes defense that were very clutch, and then 1 pick 6. You love to see it because a lot of Broncos fans didn't like this pick because they saw Justin Fields out there. They wanted a quarterback. Patrick Surtain comes in and scores a touchdown in his first preseason game from the quarterback spot. I think he was the number 1 corner in that class. It's great to see him get off to a hot start.
Yeah. And, if for the Carolina Panthers, a little game pressure, right? Because, J.C. Horn, who they took over Patrick Surtain, played on Sunday. I don't think he had a pick. I'm 90% sure he didn't have a pick 6. Maybe 100% sure he didn't have a pick 6. But the point being is that, if you take one cornerback over another and the next guy goes the very next pick, those 2 dudes are going to be compared moving forward. And Surtain, he just jumped the route. It was perfect. Timed it perfectly, and he was housebound. Never in doubt. It was just a great play. And if he's ready, if he's out of the box ready to be an impact defender, the Broncos defense is going to be good. If there is a pathway where if Locke takes a step and that defense is healthy and as good as we think it is, where the Broncos are a 10+ win team. People are sort of out on them, but I don't think we should completely discount Denver being a threat in the division.
No, I'm glad you said
preseason hype right there, by the way.
Yeah. I did a thing for CBSSports.com this offseason where I ranked all the talent of the rosters 1 to 32, and I didn't take the quarterback into consideration, because quarterbacks are the most important position, but I didn't elevate their status for this project. The Broncos came in at number 13 for me, and I wanted to put them in the top 10 because I think this defense could be one of the best in the NFL. They have a young and upcoming wide receiving core that I like. We spoke about Noah Fant earlier, top 10 tight end. Their running back room is going to be great. Javonte looks awesome too. He's a rookie out of UNC. If they get a quarterback, and that's why everyone was betting those Super Bowl flyers when Aaron Rodgers was up in the air, because the Broncos have that kind of potential. So I'm with you. This Broncos team looks really good. You're almost hoping that they can figure out the quarterback spot because this could be a really fun team to watch. Yeah,
and Aaron Rodgers wanted to go to Denver. The interesting wrinkle here is that, and not that Aaron Rodgers won't be able to get a job elsewhere, but if for some reason Drew Lock does take a leap forward and becomes a viable starter in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers ain't going to Denver because the Broncos are going to keep the young guy who, if Drew Lock leads the Broncos to the playoffs, 1, Teddy Bridgewater is playing for another team next year. 2, Aaron Rodgers ain't come to Denver because as good as Aaron Rodgers is, if you have a young quarterback who takes a big step forward, you're not just going to ditch him for 1 year, even if you maybe think that maybe they would. I think they might hold off. We'll see. That's a long ways down the road. Any other thoughts? I guess we have Sam Ellinger, maybe.
He was great.
Quarterbacks, I guess.
He was great.
Yeah.
I just did something for the Colts yesterday. So, they have a legitimate backup quarterback competition on their hands. And Ellinger came in, and I thought
maybe starter depending on when Wentz is ready.
Yeah. Right. A starter for week 1 or week 2, maybe.
Yeah.
But Ellinger came in, threw a pick on his first or second drive. It was gross. And then all of a sudden he spurned this incredible comeback. He got in a rhythm and found a former teammate of his 47 yards. I think his name was Tariq Black, 47 yards down the field. Then put this awesome ball, perfect placement. A guy made a one-handed catch between 2 defenders that led to the touchdown. He sparked a comeback by himself and then obviously did the game-winning drive to secure the game-winning field goal. He was impressive. When he found a rhythm, he looked pretty damn good. And Jacob Eason had a good outing as well. So that's going to be something I have an eye on moving forward as well.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Just trying to think if there's anything else that stood out from sort of the weekend's games. I got
a couple for you if you want.
Oh, fire away. By all means.
Did you watch the Arizona Cardinals Dallas Cowboys game? I thought that was actually kind of entertaining.
Yeah, I will confess that I was at my parents' house and we had the game on, but my dad and I were out on the sun porch, like their porch, watching it with the TV on, but not, we weren't like watching it like it was a game. We were having, chatting it up and maybe drinking some nice scotch and sort of forgot to pay attention to the entire game. But yes, I did watch it. My dad's like, who's that quarterback for the Cardinals? I'm like, I think it's Colt McCoy. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I love that game because the Cardinals were not hiding their playbook. Like they were running like reverses to Rondale Moore, play action stuff. They made Colt McCoy look like a really athletic quarterback at times. It was fun to watch. But
almost like he's filling in for Kyler Murray.
Yes, exactly. And Rondale Moore really impressed me. 39 total yards, 3 catches. They're going to use him a lot in different ways. And I think he's going to take touches away from Christian Kirk. The other receiver I wanted to talk about real quickly.
Or maybe Larry Fitzgerald.
Or Larry Fitzgerald. That's true.
I'm serious. Like people are like, oh, like AJ Green's replacing Larry Fitzgerald, but it's possible that because they use Fitz in short yardage and slot stuff. So if you bring in Rondale Moore and have him do that, throw him screens. I mean, get the ball in his hands in space. I mean, I think Cliff Kingsbury will be good and knowledgeable enough to do that. I hope. Yeah,
that actually does make a lot of sense. The other receiver I want to talk about, Eagles wideout Quez Watkins. That kid is really impressive to me. It's funny because he had 1 catch for 79-yard touchdown. He would have had another 98-yard touchdown if Jalen Hurts could hit an open wide receiver downfield. He was on a different level. And I think he's going to be someone to watch this year. He's a 6th-round pick out of Southern Miss. Last year, he caught just 7 passes for 106 yards and 1 score. But, I mean, that means 2 out of his last 8 catches have gone for long touchdowns. He looks like a legitimate home run hitter. Jalen Hurts came out to the media and said, hey, man, we dropped the ball here. Quez Watkins is not a secret anymore. People know about him. So him and Devontae Smith on the outside could be really interesting to watch.
Yeah. That's a good point. Devo, any thoughts on the Eagles and Quez Watkins?
We need an extra receiver. It's not going to be our guy JJ. So I'm excited for anyone to step up. So yeah,
I had a Rager look. I didn't see. I was watching the Washington New England game more than.
I mean, Quez was the one that stood out. Obviously, Devontae Smith did not play, so Rager had a couple moments. I think he could be a guy for the slot that they look at this year. And Hurts did what I needed to see at a couple drops. But everybody that suggests Joe Flacco will be the starter should not talk about football.
Yeah. Do people say that?
Small percentage, but it's out there.
Telling on yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're like Joe Flacco needs to start over Jalen Hurts, that's not a take.
I'll toss this out there.
I'm gonna put Bud Light's name on that cold take. I'll tell you that much.
I'll toss this out there, and this is something I said on draft night. The Eagles, along with other teams, will regret not taking Justin Fields when they had the chance to.
I think that is accurate and fair. The Panthers, I mean, the Broncos at least got that certain pick-6. But if you're the Panthers, you're like, what if we taken Justin Fields? We'd be feeling pretty good about things in our life right now. I agree with you. I think Fields will be good. I just hate that he went to the Bears. The Bears Bears fans shouldn't have nice things. People like Matt Snyder and Tom Fornelli, Sean. Man, this
confirms the rivalry, the feud continues into 2021, right?
Yeah, yes. Until they start. I'm not going to root against Justin Fields. I don't want to do that.
Okay.
That seem fair?
Yeah.
Like a quarterback can change my mind about a franchise very quickly. Like I'm perfectly fine rooting against the Bears. Now I would prefer to root against the Vikings, honestly, because of other, reasons.
Vikings and the Colts. Those are your two teams.
You're right. The Vikings and the Colts are kind of on my radar. Although I did have that ice cold Bud Light take about the Vikings being better than the Packers. That's kind of concerning. I would like a mulligan on that one.
You don't get mulligans on ice cold takes.
No, you don't, dude. Sure don't. Hey. All right. That'll do it for the show. Oh, I didn't see a snap of Seattle, Las Vegas. And as I'm perusing the stat line, it doesn't appear that I'm going to be watching a snap of because Derek Carr and Russell Wilson did not play. Any other?
I got one more storyline for you.
Fire. Yeah.
All right, everyone. I'm not sure how many people actually watched the Titans-Falcons preseason game, but You should go look at the box score of the Falcons quarterbacks. Felipe Franks, rookie quarterback, played at Florida, then went to Arkansas, finished with 16 passing yards, and he played the entire second half. But he led his team in rushing yards with 76. Pretty fascinating game to watch. Every drop back he had, instead of trying to fire to his receiver on his first or second read, he tucked and run. And he led the Falcons with 76 rushing yards. They fell 23-3, 16 passing yards, and that was 2 passing yards up until I think the final drive of the game. So that was pretty fascinating thing to watch. But as Debo and I were talking about, people are already photoshopping pictures of him and Mike Vick next to each other. So impressive performance on the ground.
I snarfed when I heard you suggest that Felipe Franks is essentially Mike Vick, but fun, probably not true. I had the Falcons in that game. That game was not great. I would say this too. The reason that I got on, for those that missed the podcast last week, the reason that I got on the under in Chargers and Rams is that notably, Sean McVay doesn't play his starters in the preseason. He just doesn't want to do it. He thinks that they're prepared enough already, that they're going to get hurt. There's nobody of note playing for the Rams in this game. Brandon Staley, the Chargers coach, comes from Sean McVay's team. And he also said, I ain't playing anybody either. So I think we should be looking at Chargers and Rams games for under spots. They're not going to score a bunch of points. He doesn't care about racking up preseason points. He doesn't care about, they're just not going to play a bunch. They had 8 possessions by the Rams. Only one went more than 10 plays, and only zero of them were more than 50 yards long. If you look at the Chargers, they actually had this helps your under, of course, when you have a 21 play, 73-yard drive that results in a field goal to start the game. That always helps the under. But then only one more possession by the Chargers was 10 plays or more. It was exactly 10, and only 2 more possessions were above 50 yards. One resulted in a touchdown, but neither of these teams are trying to score that hard. They're not going to be using their starters. So I think that's a targeting point for week 2 of the preseason. I was trying to see if I could find a number. Let me look on.
Well, I was going to ask this too. Do you think we're done seeing all these unders hit? Because a lot of people anticipate that we're actually going to start seeing more overs come week 2.
Yeah, I would. No, yeah. I do not think, because unders killed in week 1, right?
Yeah.
Crushed. I would not go out and blindly bet a bunch of unders because of week 1 of the preseason, because in week 2, we are going to start seeing, this is how it works. I mean, week 1, you don't play your starters. Week 2, you sort of ramp up a bit. Week 3, you give them maybe a full half. And then week 4, nobody plays. And there's no week 4 now, obviously. But I think week two is not the time to blindly go out and bet unders. I do think you're more likely to see overs hit. But because of, these are just regular season games. I don't want regular season. I want freaking preseason. But because of the Chargers and Rams situation, I would be interested in potentially betting those unders.
Okay, I was curious about
that.
No,
but you're right. Do not go out and blindly bet. Do not go out and blindly bet a bunch of unders because week 1 went under. It's very possible we see a bunch of overs in week 2. All right, good stuff, Jordan. As always a fun chat with you, buddy. Well, that's week 1 of the preseason. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, with more NFL content. We're going to preview the 2021 year. Jordan, as always, thanks, buddy.
Appreciate it, Will. Thank